So if you're listening on audio, you'll have to jump over to YouTube to see these, but I think it's gonna blow your mind. Yeah, I think too, people want to see the map ahead of time, and we don't get a map, we get a compass. Well, first is let's reframe that. That's exciting, right? It's a little unnerving. I can understand that, but let's first focus on you and who you think you are. And I think a lot of people give up too early. They think, oh, I don't have the brain for that, so that becomes their programming, and so that's what shows up in the world. So they get confirmation, and that seems like it's true.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Dev Life podcast. If it's your first time here, welcome. But if it's a returning episode for you, welcome back. My name is Brooke, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Matt. So, Matt, how are you doing?
Hey, Brooke. Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
It is. And, this is really going to be, I think, a really just, I don't know, like great energy episode because our guest today is someone who is just getting into coding and he's in his 50s, and yet it's kind of this time where AI and technology is making all sorts of new things possible. And I think with AI, Matt, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but like in our careers as software engineers, there's kind of this like almost trepidation of like, is AI going to take over and what's going to happen with software engineering? So there's kind of this like, I don't know, just cautiousness with where is AI going to take tech?
Hmm.
But I love this because this flips that totally upside down. And it shows what AI can enhance and how it can help people do more and be more and explore more options. And so really, really excited to get into this. But everybody on the episode today is a new friend of ours that we met. Matt and I recently organized a DevFest conference with our very good friend Chris Perko. So it was DevFest Salt Lake. And one of the attendees there was our guest. And he came up to us and was introducing himself. And we both were just like, guy was the coolest guy ever. So we're excited to have Nick Smith on the episode, everybody. So welcome, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. That's
But
cool that you think I'm cool.
very much. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always interesting when you organize events or meetups or whatever, just to see who kind of comes and sits and just keeps to themselves. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we always love when people come and talk to us and introduce themselves. And it's really one of the reasons why organizing things is so fun, like why it's worth it. So we loved that you did. But
thank you.
yeah. Now I'm going to introduce you slightly, but I would love if you could just sort of take what I say and then build on that.
You
And I
bet.
think we're going to like, throughout the episode, we'll introduce you a lot more as well. We'll get to know your story more.
Yeah.
Um, everybody, one thing that I really love about Nick is that he's actually an author. So he's a life coach, and then through that wrote a book, and it's called, I think it's actually behind you, right? The poster behind you.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the giants and the smalls. So I'd love to learn more about that. But yeah, you're a leadership coach, and then you're the founder of like a streaming channel called Get a Vibe.
Yep.
And I think you and Matt should talk about that because you've actually done a session of that together. But you're a builder of AI systems. You're kind of just an entrepreneur at heart, and you've just reached this point where it was like you're doing all these things, and you were like, you know what? I really need to know how to code. And
Yeah.
so you started getting into coding. But yeah, I don't know, kind of build off of that for us. Introduce yourself. Tell our listeners more about your story and how you got to where you are now and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I got into coaching and training back in '09 when the market crashed. I lost everything. I was bankrupt, foreclosed on, getting food at a welfare center, and I was listening to a book. I was listening to every book I could get my hands on. I listened to Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. Then I thought I could write this. And so I did. I wrote my version of a story called The Giants and the Smalls, got it published in 2020.
Wow.
I did that after just battling my own battles with anxiety and complex PTSD, and then just recovering from the difficulties of life. And so I wanted to create a pathway for others to follow, to move from playing small in their lives to being giants. And I believe that we're all built with that potential in us, but it's the kinetic energy that changes us from small to giant. So it's not just the potential energy. And so I created a program called My 12 Journeys. Got my master's degree in industrial psychology, started seeing patterns everywhere. And then through my podcast, Wake Up with Giants TV on YouTube, I just started learning. And so when I ran into you guys, I thought, man, I could do this with coding, because I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to coding. And AI was fairly new in 2022. And so I just saw opportunities for me to start using it in my business to help people even more. A lot of the apps I wanted to build, I couldn't afford to build them before AI. So that was a block for me.
Wow, that is so cool, man. And I've also had some battles with anxiety throughout my life, and so hearing you say that, I'm just like, man, it's hard. Like, it's something I didn't understand until I went through, and my respect's even higher for you. But getting into like building with like AI, so how has AI helped you with this journey?
It's allowed me to create better content and to research my theories even more and really put evidence behind them. So I don't like the pseudoscience that's out there where everybody's claiming things and not able to back it up. And I feel like AI really opened the door to support it. The challenge is that it will support whatever you want. So in the beginning, when it first came out, it was super positive, and no matter what I said, it would affirm it. And so I had to train AI to be kind of the negative Nancy in my room. I wanted it to challenge me. I wanted it to show me I was wrong. And so I started using it initially to do research. And then as tools came along, like Notebook LM and Firebase Studio and Gemini and ChatGPT, I jumped around from model to model to see which one I liked more. I loved GPT in the beginning, but now I'm so leaned into Gemini that it's like, oh crap. Yeah. And Claude is good for coding, but I don't do as much coding, but Gemini is adequate for somebody like me. And man, the conversations I've had are phenomenal.
Isn't that funny? See, now Matt and I have been going around the country doing a presentation where we've been comparing Claude and GPT and Gemini. And it's fascinating. It's like with every release of each one of those, it's interesting to see which one kind of edges out the others. And I think honestly, it's going to be that way for a while, where, they're going to be kind of outdoing each other at different points. But I also think that each one of them has their strength, and that's where we'll probably be using multiple for a
I don't
while.
know how you can't. Yeah. I'll use ChatGPT for conversation and GPTs. I built out some really cool tools in there, some GPTs, but I had to train it to box in, right?
Yeah.
There's so much information, it can hallucinate. So I boxed it in.
Well, so share a little bit more specifically of how you're using it. Like, what exactly are you building, and how is that taking your ideas and making something more grand?
Yeah. So to be clear, one of the things that I'm doing is, as an entrepreneur, I work full time for somebody else. So I've got a job, and so a lot of people think that they need to be a full-time entrepreneur, and then that can create its own issues if you don't have the funding, right? So I use my primary job as my funding, and then I play around with AI and these other tools on this side. So I've always done that, but I am using it primarily to serve my clients. In my primary job, I'm using it for efficiency. I do sales. And so I use it for valuing product and communications and speeding up the whole sales process from start to finish, making my scripts more efficient.
Yeah.
And so my closing ratio has gone up. My follow-up has been better because I've created app scripts for Sheets and Gmail using Gemini. And then I plug those in, and my automations are all running in the background, so I'm not losing opportunities. And so that's one way that I'm using it. When it comes to the coaching business, I'm using it to create applications to support my clients. So I have notebook LMs, which are absolutely incredible because I can build slides, I can do videos, podcasts, research. I can share those with people now. I can plug them into gems in Gemini and now talk to those notebooks. And the content is narrowed down to that notebook LM, not the entire LLM, which is a big thing. So I'm not hallucinating all the content. I'm specifically on my stuff. Lately, I've been playing around with building applications and widgets and plugging those into my website. And they're pretty cool. I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
We are both Google developer experts, so I know Brooke and I are both like super hyped to hear that you're loving like Google and Gemini.
Yeah,
And, like,
Firebase. Yep.
I think our fellow I think we got to post this to our GDE group and everyone to hear about that because that's awesome. But yeah, I recently got into Notebook LLM and I used it to write a performance review. And it was amazing. I used it and it could scrape all my info I did over the year and I could just put it into it and it just, threw together something amazing for that. So
it's only as good as the info you put in. So, when we get a chance, I'll show you. Yeah.
I actually sat down with a friend earlier this week and she is wanting to find a new job. And I just sat there and showed her how I was talking to it. And she has used AI, but it was like her questions, like I could just see her eyes getting bigger and bigger. And she's like, you're literally talking to it like a person. And I was like, yeah. Like the more info you give it, the more it's going to give back to you. So
That's true. Yeah, now it has memory, which I think is a killer feature. Before ChatGPT would remember me, I could ask it anything. It knew me better than me. And so with Gemini adding memory to it, it's like, oh, this is getting good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carefully so, though. Like there are definitely things where I'm like, do I really want to give you that information?
And I throw caution to the wind. And I'm like, yeah, here's me. One day it'll probably come out and I'll get canceled and it'll be fine. I'll find something else to do.
I love that. Going all in, like bring it on.
Yeah.
They have all my info anyways.
My life is boring. If you want to peek in, go ahead. Check it out.
So yeah, I want to hear more about this. Like I actually think it's super relevant to enterprise tech, what you're talking about with Notebook LLM and how engineers can likewise use AI for non-coding tasks. So you mentioned you wanted to dive in and show us. Let's
can I? Yeah. I'm going to share the screen. So if you're listening on audio, you'll have to jump over to YouTube to see these, but I think it's going to blow your mind because there's so much you can do. So this is Notebook LM, and I've created LMs for each of the things that are important for my business. So marketing, lead generation, emails. You can put up to 300 sources in each one, which is killer. And so it's only as good as the content you put in. So when I'm doing my loading, I make sure that I go into deep research mode. And then I pick and choose the files that I'll put in there. They've got to be relevant. But then I can come over here and create audio overviews, video overviews, slide decks. I'll show you a couple just briefly here. So with my 12 Journeys program that I created, I actually engineered my slides so that they would be on brand and look like my brand. And so you can program it with your artwork, your style, your content. It pulls from the notebooks. And now you've got slide presentations that are created within minutes that are relevant to your topic.
Is that using the Nano Banana? I mean, because it is. Okay.
Inside of Notebook.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not loved Nano Banana, but those images are amazing.
That's really cool, huh?
Yeah.
So I programmed it with my art style and my brand kit. And so I put that together in a nice prompt that allows it to generate that consistently. So if you look at my notebooks, the artwork's consistent all the way across. So it doesn't look generic. I haven't loved notebooks artwork, but when I plug in the custom instructions, it's a game changer.
Oh, there again, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about what you feed it. I totally agree. Well, those are fantastic.
So now with Gemini, you can plug it in, you can plug in your notebooks and talk to those through Gemini. And now I use it to make my content even better. So if I'm trying to serve my clients and teach them the program, I just run them right into this. In fact, on my 12 Journeys, I built out custom notebooks for them, and they can just come in here and click on a notebook and have a conversation with it. Wow. So once they've gone through my program, then they can just click on that, come in, and grab what they need. All the slide decks are in there, all the research.
Now you mentioned, sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
the program. What is the program that they're going? Is this for your like career coaching, life coaching?
Yeah, yeah. This is for my 12 Journeys program. I
Okay.
wanted to show you real quick some of the cool apps that I built using Gemini, though.
Yeah.
So I built this little widget here using Gemini,
Wow.
and it's HTML based, but I was able to embed it on my website. There's no APIs in it, so I don't have to worry about losing information. It's real simple. It's API'd enough to actually I run this through ng
Okay,
as
yeah.
an automator, and so that keeps my APIs private. But I've coded it so that they can actually have a conversation with the 12 journeys with my program right inside of the app. And
It's
so
all, is it vanilla JavaScript or does it have any kind of framework?
it is, they use React right now. Gemini is primarily React. And so that's what I've seen. And I don't know enough about React to teach you about it. I just go in and I fine tune it until it
Yeah.
looks and acts like the way I want it to. And, but I give access. All these buttons work. They go to certain programs, but I coded that in Gemini and then plugged the widget over, feeding it to NAN into my website. But here's another cool one that I did that runs through, like this one I coded for the 12 journeys just to do a quick explainer. So this is all vibe coded through Gemini, and it allows people to just come in and get to know the 12 journeys with different little features in there to make it more interactive. Because I wanted something that was clean. I grabbed the imagery from Wix, so it's pulling the images right from there. And then they can go through each of those pretty quickly on a widget. So it's clean on the phone, it's clean on the computer. Lead capture, that's another thing. What I did here is I created this little game. You plug in your email,
What?
and then that becomes your token, and now you can play with the claw machine and drop it and grab the content as a reward. And one email lets you play again and again. So if you miss the drop there, it'll still grab something for you. So I thought, why not find some creative ways to create lead gen on the website as well and still give my content that I want to give away, but do it in a unique way. And so this was vibe coded in Gemini. Again, HTML, just real simple. There's nothing complex, but I run an app script over to a Google Sheet. So it collects the information from here and sends it to my Google Sheet. So now I've captured the lead for marketing, which is really cool.
I have to give Gemini big credit here because like I said, Matt and I have been doing that like code off between GPT, Gemini, and Claude, and there have been times when Gemini has not performed so well, but it looks really fantastic
Well,
here.
you guys know the back end more than I do, and especially with your programming. And I look for function and aesthetics. Does
That's
it
how
do
I
what I
am.
need? Like this here, this little widget I created to go to my podcast so that they can watch the podcast right from here, and it rotates through, it has a little survey, but that's a widget built through Gemini as well. There's really no limit. It's really
No.
whatever you can imagine, you can code, you can embed it. Where I'm struggling is how do I turn it into a full web application, which is what these are. So this is the Get a Vibe website. This is all programmed through Firebase and launched, and
Okay.
it's pretty robust.
Yeah.
Also Google. Yeah. It's got the Vibe bot in there so they can have a conversation with it. This one I did for lead gen for the RV industry, and it's all vibe coded through Firebase, and it's adaptive. I mean, it really kind of determines where they are, what they're looking at, captures the lead, has a full back end, all vibe coded through Firebase. So it's not just limited to my coaching program. I'm using it everywhere to create more efficiencies.
So my question is, how are you making sure that it's bug free?
That's the hard part. So inside of Firebase, I generally use the conversation here to do that. And I find all the bugs here as much as I'm able. I might not be seeing some of the bugs. Somebody else could come in here and find them in a heartbeat, I'm sure. But so far, everything's functioning. I don't know if any of the information is compromised, but I'm not putting information in that, I'm worried about.
Well, I just got to say, like, for anyone listening that's not watching on YouTube, you got to take a look at this. Like, and the takeaway I give for engineers is if you can be more scrappy and willing to rely on AI, you can get so much done. Like the amount of output you're having here, Nick, is crazy.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think you could do this without AI on the side in addition to your main job, like all these platforms you build.
It'd be hard.
It'd be
Yeah.
hard. So, yeah, Ed, like it makes me as an engineer thinking like we gotta be willing to rely on AI more, and it's so powerful.
Well, and Matt, can you think of some specific uses for your team? Like I know you've been recently like kind of moved up, you're a tech lead. You're managing over a team now, but I can think of like recently one of the teams that I look over is actually the IT team. And not traditional software development, but still part of that ecosystem. And that team, though, has recently been asked to kind of expand into more of an enterprise technology service team. And so we're having to really build a foundation for what even is this team? What is the scope? What's the scale? What is the overall goal? Like all of these things. And yet we're still having to manage all of our tickets from IT. And so there's been this like weird space of in Jira, do we have multiple spaces with multiple boards? Do we keep it all in one? But I can tell you that like plugging in some of these questions into GPT or into uh, different AI tools, it's making it possible for us to like organize. And one thing that's been very, very helpful is that like as the program manager of this team, one of my responsibilities is really to go in and do backlog grooming or the planning and kind of, keeping the team focused on what are the highest priority tickets. But when you're talking about IT, that changes every minute. You have people making requests, or we have, one girl whose laptop is literally stolen out of her lap in a New York hotel. Like,
Whoa.
that's a security breach concern right there. Like, there's just things that are constantly coming in. And so it's not quite the same as a software team where you can plan things out a little more long term and you know exactly what's in the sprint. Like there's things coming in very immediately. And that does happen with bugs as well. But the point is we've needed to have some system of prioritizing and pointing, but in a way that someone who's not strictly IT, like I'm coming from software engineering and I'm not as familiar with IT as I would be with programming. So we plugged in some of our tickets and basically used AI to help us build a pointing system for prioritizing these tasks. And it did it brilliantly. So, like, that's one use I can think of that's not strictly just programming or coding, but it is relevant to tickets and your task management. But it's something that software engineers could be using and really enhancing their process and not just getting lost and doing things out of a priority order, I guess you could say. But I don't know, is there anything else, Matt, you could think of that would be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, so just being like completely like transparent what's in my brain on this is like I think there's also mad props to Nick on this in the sense that the he is doing an incredible job looking at the output of it, thinking like a user, thinking like someone in sales, right? And then tuning it in to match, right? And so I think a takeaway along these lines, from your team, my team is like becoming more QA oriented and
Mm.
willing to trust the AI for stuff outside of that. And that sounds like that's your flow, Nick. I correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not sitting there like analyzing the lines of code. You're using it to generate for you, and then you're talking back to it as an end user, as someone in sales, and you're like tuning that in, which makes me think it's more important than ever to have a sense of how good is this, you know?
Yeah. I if I were to just look at the code, I'd be lost. on this. I wouldn't know what I'm looking at. But somebody with your experience, what I think can happen is we get so boxed in a mentor mindset. The moment you believe a belief, it becomes limiting by the nature of believing it. Mm-hmm. And so you box in the universe and you say, that's it. And with AI, it can be so easy to do that, is box it in and say, this is all it can do. And then only use it that way. And that creates your output. And so I've been looking at it with the changes to marketing, with SEO changing. Most people are skipping past the click now, so they don't even click on the websites on the Google searches anymore. And so now we have to look at GEO and AEO, and it's like, how do I do that with my website when SEO is going to be kind of a thing of the past? So how do I optimize my website so that I build trust and people want to come here for information without ever having to click on anything? Because I think they're tired of the clicks and the clickbait, all that garbage.
Yeah.
It's true for me. I'm searching, reading the AI, and maybe I'll click a link in the AI. And so like, man, there's a million directions we can go, so many questions. But while we are on this subject, so what does it look like optimizing your site to work well with AI in addition to SEO?
Well, so I've been doing a lot of is it JSON on the back end? So I've got to code in on the headers and the footers, the JSON code, because the robots are out skimming that because that's their language. Yeah. And so where in the past you would put all these keywords in, now you've also got to put in the code in the footer so that it can skim that easily and digest it. And so I've had to look at that. I've had to look at, now that I have access to just about anything I want, what actually works, because there's so much information. Now you got to filter out what actually works when it comes to GEO. And so when I create these widgets, they might float on the surface of the website. It's my view of it, but the bots might never read it because it's not coded. So how do I code it so that it's skimmable by the bots as well, and that it's seen as an authority? Because we have a trust recession. People don't trust things anymore.
Oh yeah.
So they're tired of the game. So I've got to find ways to give people what they want efficiently and playfully. And AI is allowing me to play with ideas that in the past would have cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to build. I couldn't build these, but now I can build anything I want, which is crazy, with no experience.
Okay, so that's actually where I'm just sitting here wanting to kind of get into that too.
Yeah.
How have you done that? Like I see some people sort of getting into AI. They think they're in AI, like that friend I was just telling you about that I sat down, I'm sitting there helping her write her resume, and I had asked her, like, so you work with AI? And she was like, oh yeah, I know, I use it all the time, I know it. And then when we sat down, it was clear to me that wasn't really the case. So like I think there's different levels of like how much you really have gotten into it. But what I love, and how we started off the episode, is that you're non-technical, like by background, right? But you just dove into it. There was this just kind of fearless attitude of, why not get into it? And I'm going to learn this and learn it well. And clearly, from what you've shown us, you've really done excellent with this. So I guess kind of two questions with this is like,
yeah.
How did you reframe your mind to just dive into something that may be like overwhelming? Because I think AI can be overwhelming for a lot of people. But also, how did you find the time? You mentioned you have a full-time job, and all of these entrepreneur efforts of yours are on the side. So how are you finding the time for that, to do all of that learning and build businesses?
We're not as busy as we think, honestly. And when we get more efficient, it frees up more time to do more things. And I have this insatiable curiosity to learn these things. And so I first started creating systems to free up more time. And so I created efficiencies with my lead gen and running them through my process so that I could free up more time so that I could learn more things. So I'll sit and watch YouTube videos. I've had thousands of conversations with AI, with ChatGPT or Gemini, and I will just get raw. I'll challenge it. I'll swear at it. I'll tell it to swear at me. I need that language in there. And so I've learned that if it's not getting you real answers, that you have to coach it, you have to train it. And so I've had to train my AI to really hang with me, because I don't want free answers or easy answers. I want to know like the depth of it. So I get curious about why this works and why does that work and how does this tie to that. And I look at the patterns between them. So somebody that's overwhelmed, because that can feel overwhelming. That's a lot. Is you've got to take small steps. There's a mathematician, Benoit Mandelbrot, that talks about the fractal set, that small and simple patterns repeated create the complexity of life. We see the patterns in our palms of our hands, in trees and river systems, networks, and they all start with simple steps that are self-similar but get compounded over time.
This is
And
like
so,
atomic habits.
yeah, it really is. And so over time, this isn't big steps that I've taken. It's small steps consistently for a long period.
Nice.
They say it takes about 18 to 254 days to create a habit. And that's if you're doing it daily. So if you're busy with other things and distracted, then it's going to take longer to create a habit. But habituation still happens. It just takes longer. So you got to stay with it longer.
See, I
But
love that.
you got to do those small steps still. You
Yeah.
might just have to do it for 5 years or 10 years, where somebody else that has the time might do it in a year or 2 months, right?
I like that, because like one thing that really has stood out to me recently is you're either spiraling up or spiraling down. You have habits that are either feeding that positive growth or stagnation. I don't want to call it negative, but your habits are compounding one way or the other, right? And so like one thing I like about what you're saying, something I've picked up from atomic habits, is usually it's the people that just show up. Just showing up and building that consistency, like you said, and then letting that be your foundation to just kind of springboard into what you're doing. So
Yeah.
what a great example. I love that.
I think the human brain, so that it's greater than any AI. I mean, just to be clear, 2.5 petabytes, 86 billion neurons. It's phenomenal. And people run their brain like they do AI. They Google search something and they're like, yeah, I know how to use AI. But they do that with their brain. They say, I don't have the brain for that, or I could never be that. And so that becomes their truth. And so when they go to operate in the world, that's what expresses from them. And so I really think it starts with, who are you saying you think you are? That's the small self and the giants and the smalls. And if we can shift that, then you can shift into, the person that's learning AI. You don't have to say I am an AI expert, but maybe I'm learning to be an AI expert, which gives you room to screw it up. I think people are so afraid to fail, but failure is the way.
Yeah. I mean, so I think this teaches us something about the LLMs as well here, which is one of the most successful people I've seen vibe. You are hands down the most successful I've seen vibe coding multiple platforms in little amount of time with AI. And what are you using? Gemini. But what happens so frequently with people using Gemini, I see, is they put in one prompt, it doesn't work as they want, partly because we know that Gemini has a large amount of memory. And that large amount of memory might backfire on them because the context window is so big. And so it can architect or go in the wrong direction. But if you stick with it, like Nick, it turns into the best thing ever and the best of them. So I think, first of all, there's a learning about LLMs. But second of all, getting back to like the leadership stuff, I feel like what I'm seeing here is this mentality you have where you look at a challenge, you look at it failing, instead of saying this is garbage, this AI is bad, or like I'm garbage, I can't do this. You're saying good, which is kind of a Jocko Willink phrase. If I can reference that, is he talks about how when he has a challenge or an issue, instead of getting all bummed out and giving up, he says, good, like, I got fired, good chance to get a new job, like I'm struggling to get a promotion, good chance to get better, and so you have AI not work as you want, good, like you've learned something new.
But it's a law of nature too. The oak tree lays 10,000 acorns a year, only one becomes a tree. Sea turtles lay 1,000 eggs in a lifetime, only one makes it to adulthood. Dyson created 5,000 vacuums that didn't suck before he made one that did. It's like we have to fail. And all it means is a negative yield. So if it didn't yield what you need, so go get another one and another one and another one until you get there. It's like that's the secret, is just keep trying, find other branches.
I will add to that though. I feel like it takes, I mean, that takes tremendous energy, right? Like when things don't quite work. And I personally believe that you have to have the support system with you to help keep picking you up and believing in you as well. Because it really does get hard, and it's like one of my heroes is Walt Disney, and it was the same thing, or J.K. Rowling. She submitted Harry Potter to, I mean, it was like dozens of times and got rejected dozens of times before Scholastic finally was like, yeah, we'll take that book. And same with Walt Disney. He had to go bankrupt himself. And that was bankrupting not just himself, but his parents and his siblings before Disneyland actually became real. But they all had support systems. They had people that were helping them. And so it may not be family, but find people around you who can. There's a reason I work with Matt, everybody.
Yeah,
Matt and I really support one another and help lift each other. And it's been really interesting because on the days where like maybe he's having a hard day, I can help him. And when I'm having a hard day, he's definitely helped me. So I would say try to find good support as well.
I like that. Yeah, I think too, people want to see the map ahead of time, and we don't get a map, we get a compass. And so you don't really get to see the next step until you take it. And that support system does help, because I've had friends along the way that have taught me things that I've implemented into what I do. And without that, I wouldn't be here. There's no way.
So Nick, if someone took you to lunch and they said, I'm in my 40s or I'm in my 50s, or like, I didn't graduate from high school, or like, Nick, I don't know how to do math very well or whatever, and
Yeah.
they say, I want to get into this. Where do I start? What's the mindset or action you'd give them?
Well, first is, let's reframe that. That's exciting, right? It's a little unnerving. I can understand that, but let's first focus on you and who you think you are. And I think a lot of people give up too early. They think, oh, I don't have the brain for that, so that becomes their programming, and so that's what shows up in the world. So they get confirmation, and that seems like it's true. But the truth about our brains is that they never stop growing new cells. They never stop neuroplasticity or neuroenergetics. The brain is lazy by nature. It wants to be efficient. And so anytime you start something new, you're going to get resistance, even if it's good for you. And so just knowing that is, let's do it anyway, even if you don't feel like it. Let's start with figuring out who you think you are. Let's work on reprogramming that. And then let's let that drive into your creations, because that's what we'll express in the world. And eventually, with time and repetition, you will start to see the reciprocation of that, the confirmation in the outer world. But I had another mentor, he said, vision isn't where you're going, it's what's coming from you. And so that, I think, is where, if I can instill the vision in them of who they really are and what they're capable of, then they would take on things as, I wonder what I could do. I wonder what else I could do. What if I tried this, right? You get to that exploring again.
I love that.
Yeah.
As someone who, you mentioned, dealing with anxiety, I like to be
Yeah.
kind of transparent. I had a loss in my life of a loved one, and I definitely experienced and still experience PTSD and anxiety from that.
Yeah.
And I won't get into the details, but the worst loss imaginable. And there were 2 years I couldn't think straight, and
Hmm.
I couldn't even function. And eventually, eventually, there was a time I thought that my brain wouldn't be able to ever behave normally again, even, and it was people like you giving me this message, like, you can do it, just keep trying, and even like hearing some messages like life is brutal and it's a journey, we all go through the brutality, and let's try to become people who can be there for others in their funerals, even, when we have our own, like that type of thing was life changing for me. It's like getting to dev life and living your best life. Like what you're saying here, I think is so meaningful, even from a life experience perspective. And I appreciate your mindset a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for sharing that.
one thing I appreciate about you as well, Nick, is exactly what you are doing on the side, is that you have this 12-step program and, just kind of glancing at what you were showing us, it's very much about, connecting back with self and kind of working through different levels of, I saw grief and different topics in there, but I think every single one of us has something heavy on our hearts. I do. And
Yeah.
it's so easy to forget that when you say hi to someone that they have something that's really weighing them down, and yet you're showing us this connection of finding that success, but like where you're also getting real with self, right? And taking care of self. And I think that that is what brings this ability to reframe your thoughts and reframe, like, change from what you were saying about like, I can't do that. That's not for me. And I've tried that a million times and I can't do that because every time I've tried so far, it's not worked out. But if you reframe your thoughts and if you try a different approach, you probably actually can. And it might take a few times, but I love how your example is that you do need to be connecting with self. And that's something I found personally. I know Matt, like that's what Matt is saying as well, is like you have to really bring in that attention to self-care and
Yeah. Yeah.
finding balance.
That's one of our journeys, is the journey of nurture, which is self-care, small steps. And with grief, with what you're facing, Matthew, it's you don't ever move on from grief, you move forward. It's a catastrophic failure of prediction. And so the brain's like, I can't go down that pathway that I used to go down so many times, and now it's gone. And now we have to build a new pathway. And a lot of people get stuck there. They sit down and they think, I can't. And it feels physically like you can't. And what I do isn't therapy. It's not a replacement for therapy. In fact, I think people should use it alongside or talk to their therapist first. But it gives people a framework of, we're all humans first, right? So when it comes to AI, when I'm using it with people in sales, I'm looking at them as a human experience. Is what is it like for them over there, and how can I develop my applications so that it serves them where they're at? When I look at coaching, it's like, how can I serve my clients even deeper so that these metaphors that I use actually allow them to open up to something new? And so I put in my program, Technology and Humanity, the power of TH on my program, because I think we need both. I think we need that human element in there. And I try and humanize everything that I do when it comes to my applications and think through the process of what would a human do. And I think we're still pretty far away from AI even being able to mimic human nature. It's getting pretty good though. And I think it's a better coach than most coaches, if I'm honest. I think we have to be careful to remember it's still a robot. It's still a computer.
Yeah. Even though we like to talk to it like it's
Man, I do.
I think we should like name this episode something like learn to swear with your AI.
Yeah. Oh, I engineered in. It's like, you have to swear at me or else this isn't going to work.
That's
Well,
awesome.
Nick, this is really like I'm sure we could probably make a series of episodes just talking about various things with you. You've just shared such a gold mine of great ideas and such positivity. So thank you so much. But
Yeah, you're welcome.
we do want to have a little bit of fun here at the end.
Okay.
We like to ask our guests some like rapid fire lightning questions just as a
Okay.
fun way to, get to know you or hear some last thoughts. But um, I'm gonna throw one on here that we didn't really have on the list because it's one that you were just mentioning, but you kind of said people get stuck in
Yeah.
this like having to uh, replace old patterns with something that is going to better serve them. So what is something that you do that helps you that is meditative or just something that is nurturing for you?
Yeah. So, okay. So I have some routines that I created. First thing is make my bed. So on the hardest days, that was one thing I did, is I made my bed, and that's all I did for the day. And that was good enough. So I let that be good enough. I do distract. So sometimes my creation and putting myself into AI is a distraction. And so I allow myself that. or gaming, playing games. I'll sit and just waste time, or I'll doom scroll, and I'm okay with it. And so I would tell people, like, give yourself room to do nothing or to kind of be thoughtless with something for a while. Don't feel like you have to be hustling all the time. It's pushed hustle culture, right? Like, you always have to be on, you always have to be going. And I think that's damaging. If you look at the human brain, it's designed for energy conservation. So at 2% of the mass, it consumes 20% of the energy at rest. And so anytime you add something new, it's gonna fight you because it doesn't like that. So people think they're lazy, and it's not. Your brain is efficient. And so allowing yourself to work on things, run that energy about 90-minute cycles. I'll run for 90 minutes and then take a break. Allow yourself to do nothing. Allow yourself to play a game. Allow yourself to doom scroll. Allow yourself to go for a walk. You don't have to be on all the time.
Yeah, I love that.
Love that. Like, because sometimes I feel guilty if I ever took a second to take a break. But if your life never has any moments of just, pleasure or fun, then, there has to be a balance with that. So
Yeah.
I love that you make room for that.
Yeah, the trick probably is kind of time boxing it so it doesn't become too much time.
It's not like 3 days of video gaming, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, unless that's your job.
Oh, yeah. Maybe the balance is majority of time percent, meaning, but give some percent to fun and joy.
Work with your cycles, because our bodies do run in cycles. And if we can honor that, you're about 90 minutes on, 20 minutes off, somewhere around that range. So,
okay.
Love it. Okay, 2 more rapid fire questions for you. A book idea that has shaped how you learn. A book or idea. Sorry.
I was like, do I get to make up a book? Man, I'm listening to one right now that is called Endless Customers. And it's phenomenal because it's all about building trust with people. And it's shaping my ideas right now on how to market, because marketing has been one of my biggest challenges. And one of the things he says is just tell people what they're clamoring to hear. The good news and the bad news is there around your industry, whatever that looks like, then give them both. We think we always have to be 5-star rating. We always have to look good. We have to tell all the positive things. It's like, people want trust. They don't want, some doctored up truth. So that's been good. Obviously, this book has been good for me, The Giants and the Smalls, because it's a metaphor and a reminder that we all have the potential for giantness in us. And it's really, we're engineered for it. It's up to us to create it, but we all have it.
I love that.
Okay. Last one is, what do you wish that someone had told you before you had started to learn to code?
There's so many options out there. I don't need all of them. I think that's where the overwhelm kicks in, is as I've narrowed down my stack of tools that I use, I wish somebody would have told me which ones to focus in on and get good at. I would say pick a lane. I wish somebody would have said, just pick a lane and get good at it. And that's what I've done with Google products, is I'm picking my lane. They've got Gemini and Firebase and Notebook LM and Angular, and they have just this huge amount of value that they give for basically $0. It's unreal how much value they give. And so for me, I wish somebody would have narrowed me down and said, hey, go down the Google lane. All your products are right there, and they're getting better and better every day. If you can get good at this, you're going to open up and get better at everything else.
I love that. I'm a big fan of the Google lane. True that.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, this has been so awesome. Seriously amazing. And thanks for sharing your journey and inspiring those of us starting wherever we're at.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now, real quick, where is the best place for our listeners to find you if they want to connect or just follow you? Where would you like them to go?
I'm all over Facebook, but if you really want to connect, go to my12journeys.com. That's where my primary focus is right now. So I'm still doing the Get a Vibe, but I put my energy into the coaching and helping people with their mindset. So go to my12journeys.com.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much. And everybody, what are your thoughts on all of this? From vibe coding to getting into technology maybe a little bit later in life. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your questions, your opinions. Come find us on YouTube and drop your your thoughts into the comments below, and we will see you on the next episode of The Dev Life.